Captain Alara Voss gripped the armrest of her command chair, the shuttle's engines humming through her bones as it sliced into the thin atmosphere of Epsilon Eridani 4. Below stretched a brutal world of crimson dunes and razor spires, where winds howled like beasts, flinging iron oxide grains that could scour hull paint in minutes. Her crew, 3 hand-picked veterans for this suicide mission, sat strapped in nearby, faces illuminated by tactical displays. Jax, the wiry engineer with his perpetual smirk and oil-stained fingers from fixes no manual endorsed. Beside him Lena, the xenobiologist, her keen eyes poring over readouts, ever cautious, always verifying the air before a breath. And in the co-pilot's seat, Marcus, the pilot whose steady hands had yanked them from black hole close calls twice, his courage a quiet, unwavering flame. "Descent in 30, Marcus said evenly, as if they weren't plunging into Council heartland. The Galactic Concordance had staked this rock for mining, but Earth knew the truth. Those ores fueled warp drives, a resource humanity needed to shed its role as the galaxy's lackeys. Alara nodded, jaw clenched. "Keep it tight. We're ghosts until the canyon." The plan was straightforward. Infiltrate the extractors, sabotage the stabilizers, buy Earth time to advance their tech. No heroics, just outcomes. But as the shuttle bucked through turbulent gusts, doubt flickered in her gut. The Council watched everywhere. Drones, sensors, those uncanny bioscanners detecting human heartbeats from orbit. Jax leaned forward, tapping his console. "Shields at 80%. That sandstorm's brutal, like flying through a grinder." His quip eased the strain, though his eyes stayed sharp, gauging engine stress. Lena looked up from her tablet. "Life signs minimal. Mostly automated crews, but if we trigger an alert..." She let it hang, her wariness a grounding force. No one needed elaboration. The risks were etched in every mind. Capture meant dissection, broadcast as a warning to rebellious colonies. The shuttle dove into the canyon, red stone walls blurring past like bloody talons. Marcus banked sharply, threading narrow gaps beyond Council patrol reach. "Touchdown in 5. Brace." They slammed down with a bone-jarring thud, dust exploding around the viewport in a suffocating haze. Alara unstrapped first, snatching her kit, compact tools, breaching charges, and a pulse rifle that felt woefully light. "Out." Jax, point on the access panel. Lena, scan for traps. Marcus, keep the bird warm. The ramp hissed open, spilling them into inferno. Winds shrieked, sand lashing their suits, visibility shrinking to mere meters. Alara tasted metallic grit through her filter, a bite promising rust. Ahead loomed the extractor's silhouette, a massive alien alloy rig, thrumming with pilfered power, its arms burrowing into the ground like ravenous claws. Jax dropped to one knee at the base, his multi-tool whirring as it linked to the lock. "This is a real puzzle box. 2 minutes." Lena's scanner chirped. "Anomalous readings. Energy spikes don't match standard ops. Something's off." Before Alara could reply, the ground quaked. Not wind. Not machines. A deep rumble swelled, and canyon walls ignited with lights, Council drones swarming like hornets, sensors fixing on them with icy accuracy. The plan had unraveled at launch. Something had spotted their approach. Elena gripped the armrest of the shuttle's worn seat, knuckles paling as the vessel shuddered through the debris field. Stars smeared into light trails outside the viewport, pierced by jagged remnants of a mining outpost. Tom hunched over the console beside her, fingers flying across the flickering holographic display, curses slipping under his breath. "These rocks are like goddamn needles in a haystack," he said, voice taut. "One wrong nudge and we're confetti." She held her silence, eyes locked on sensor readouts. The Council's blockade had transformed the outer rim into a graveyard, derelict rigs, wrecked hulls from ships too daring. Earth's legacy, they dubbed it, the relentless drive into emptiness, outposts forged from grit and scraps. But the Council viewed it as rebellion, a human flaw demanding erasure. Loyalty or oblivion, their ultimatum had thundered across comms weeks prior. Elena's mission was clean on paper. Slip past, deliver the prototype drive to Rig 7 survivors, show Earth could innovate without groveling. The shuttle jolted, alarms shrieking as a fragment nicked the wing. Tom swore sharply, wrenching the controls. Hold on, rerouting power. Sparks erupted from a panel, engines groaning in defiance. Elena braced fear's metallic edge on her tongue, but her voice stayed firm. You've got this. Just reach the rendezvous. Tom's scheme had seemed airtight, cloak and debris mimic a salvage drone. Yet the Council's patrols evolved quicker than anticipated, their AI probes shredding disguises. They burst from the thickest clutter, the shuttle protesting as it steadied. Rig 7 swelled ahead, a skeletal web of girders and domes barnacled to the asteroid's rugged face. No welcome glows, only faint emergency strobes pulsed. Elena's comm buzzed alive. This is Vasquez. Docking in 5. Status. Static hissed, then a rough voice. Dr. Lena Korsakov, the outpost chief engineer, her accent thick through distortion. Vasquez? You're late. Patrols hammered us yesterday. Lost half the crew. Get inside before they spot you. Tom eased them in, docking clamps thudding home, vibrations rattling Elena's frame. The airlock cycled with a hiss, revealing Korsakov, face grease-smeared, eyes sunken under stark lights. Shorter than Elena recalled, her wiry build in a patched jumpsuit, but her handshake was vice-like. Come. No time for hellos. Beyond her, the corridor dimmed and cluttered, jury-rigged conduits twisting like arteries along walls. They rushed to the central hab, air thick with ozone and sweat. 2 survivors clustered at a rough table. Jax, the young navigator with a fresh scar on his cheek, his cocky grin swapped for grim resolve. And Mira, the medic, binding her own arm gash without a wince. The prototype? Korsakov demanded, words clipped. Elena unslung the case from her back, flipping it open. The drive core purred softly, its crystalline heart glowing with pent-up energy. A human twist on alien tech, built to breach blockades unseen. Tom bent close, mopping brow sweat. It'll work. Boost the quantum field to cloak our exit. But, calibrated to the rig's reactor, your grid's toast. Korsakov nodded, summoning a schematic on her tablet. We try now. Council's tightening the noose. They plunged in, tools clanging, voices weaving in urgent cadence. Elena passed components, contingencies swirling in her mind. Jack eyed the scopes, voice slicing clean. Patrol inbound, 2 minutes. Deep scans. The calibration snagged fast. The core linked, but feedback roared, lights dimming as the reactor buckled. Sparks burst from the junction, Mira yelping as she jerked a scorched hand away. Overload. It's rejecting the link. Tom dove under the console, rerouting furiously, but alarms wailed, their position flaring like a beacon. Elena's stomach sank. Their careful plot from the colony ship had imploded. Council ships would swarm in moments, the prototype now a glaring liability in the stuttering light. Korsakov pounded the table. Options? Fight or run. Elena locked eyes, Earth's defiance heavy on her shoulders. No rhetoric, just motion. We adapt. Tom stripped the auxiliary cells, make it portable. We'll take the fight to them if needed. Outside, the asteroid's shadow engulfed the stars, but scanner blips glowed fierce, heralding impact. Captain Ilera Voss gripped the armrests of her command chair, the Odyssey's engines thrumming through the deck like a faint pulse. The view screen danced with the nebulous coiling gases, a false serenity masking the storm they'd plotted hours earlier. Her crew, compact, bonded, clustered at the tactical console. Jax, the wiry engineer with his constant cheek grease, murmuring calculations. And Lyra, the xenobiologist from the Vexery Alliance, her scales shimmering from wary blue to stressed amber as she eyed readouts. Incoming, Jack said, tone even but laced with that human tenacity earning council caution. Sensors pinged, 3 Krell interceptors, sleek hunters carving the nebula's mist like blades through haze. The council had ordered Earth's loyalty pledge as this scout run. Chart the unclaimed sector, claim dilithium for the Alliance. But the Krell, with their serrated hulls inching the border, took it as a challenge to probe the upstarts. Ilara's jaw locked. Boldness wasn't folly, she'd honed it hauling cargo through Mars fields. Helm evasive Delta. Jack's shields full, weapons cold for now. The ship reared as the first interceptor targeted, a warning shot skimming port. Sparks arced across consoles, Lyra flinching, claws drumming the panel. They're hailing, the comms officer called from the gloom. Ilara straightened her uniform, nodding. The Krell commander's image formed, fang jaws twisting in a smirk, eyes like glossy obsidian. Terran vessel, it rasped, voice a grinding echo. This nebula is Krell domain. Your council's tether phrase. Turn back or your hull becomes ours. Lyra whispered close, bluffing. Scans show engine strain, from their Zorith clash. Ilara noted the spark in her ally's wit, born of late strategy huddles. The Vexery had championed humanity's entry, spotting promise amid council disdain for primitives. Ilara held the commander's stare, voice cool, precise. Council directive. Mapping for mutual resources. No blood in the clouds. Silence stretched, then the Krell's laugh rumbled, wet and jagged. Mutual? You mammals hoard like pests. Final warning. The link severed, interceptors lunging, phasers igniting. Plan a bust, Jax quipped, hands blurring on controls. He hot-wired auxiliary thrusters for a slingshot into dense gas. The Odyssey quaked, alarms howling as Krell blasts seared aft shields. Ilara's thoughts raced. Dilithium was key for warp drives. Yielding it grounded Earth's nascent fleet, twisting the loyalty trial into indictment. Lyra's eyes flared, jabbing an anomaly. A rogue EMP buried in the nebula's heart, volatile yet weaponizable. If we lure them. Ilara nodded, resolve clicking. Jax tuned deflector to boost it. Lyra time it. Tension thickened, mirroring the vapors beyond. The ship plunged, engine straining, Krell in blind pursuit. One interceptor snagged ionized gas, careening aside. Jax murmured triumph, gotcha, refining the pulse. Ilara tracked readouts, pulse hammering. This transcended survival, it was validation. The Council sought fealty, Earth crafted endurance, a heritage of pivot, not yield. The pulse unleashed, a stealthy surge crippling Krell sensors and static waves. Two drifted limp, the leader fleeing into nebula folds. Ilara sagged, breath ragged. Damage? Jax grinned, swiping sweat. Shields 40% but whole. And dilithium signals brightening ahead. Lyra's scales warmed to gold. You humans, always sidestepping. Victory soured slightly. Nebula turbulence had fractured their nacelle, a drag on the return. The Council would learn of it, loyalty recast as fortitude. Ilara eyed the vanishing blips, pondering if legacy intertwined scars with wins. The habitat module's life support droned dimly, a labored pulse in the air. Captain Elena Vasquez wiped brow sweat, fingers smearing grime across her skin. Hours in, she'd shunted power from luxuries. Light stuttered, throwing shadows over strewn tools and partial assemblies. Her team required this relay mended to beam the signal past the asteroid belt. Flux welder Jax, she said curtly, eyes on the bared wiring. Jax, the wiry engineer with his chronic schematic squint, slid the tool over without comment. Cautious by nature, double-checking every seal, his quiet today screamed louder than alerts. Lena, the comms expert, paced close, boots soft on grating. Pure drive, her lean frame humming with defiant hope. Boost the array this way, we punch the interference. Council's jammers are sharp but flawed. Her tone lingered, sincere, threaded with the resolve sustaining them in the fringes. Elena nodded, soldering with a spark hiss. The outer threat dwarfed the relay glitch. The Council's blockade, drone webs exacting loyalty tax from edge colonies. Earth had balked, dispatching Elena's motley volunteers to ferry legacy tech, human cleverness defying alien decrees. One error, and drones would atomize their craft, dooming them to vacuum isolation. The welder died, Elena easing back to test the circuit. Lights held, but a red proximity flashed on console. Drones inbound, Jax muttered, caution hardening to resolve as he buckled into NAV. Lena hit her station, keys racing. Partial broadcast lock. Uploading schematics, salvaged fusion core blueprints. Outer colonies build defenses from this. Tension knotted Elena's core as the ship rocked, a drone scan grazing hull. She seized controls, launching evasions. The scheme was basic: fix, send, vanish. But drones adjusted swiftly, formation cinching like a snare. Auxiliary to shields, Elena commanded, bravery overriding dread. Jax obeyed, though strain showed, engines wailed. A hit jarred them, alarms screaming. Lena schwor, vid honing sharp. Jamming upload at 60%. Need time. Elena eyed the viewport, asteroid shards a brief haven. No words, pure deed. She swerved tight, hull scraping rock to foul drone locks. Interior sparks flew, upload climbing to 70. Jax's grip quivered faintly, but he rerouted, stealing moments. Shields 40. No more hits. The lead drone neared, weapons glowing menace. Elena's brain whirred, cleverness in crisis. Lena hitched the signal to their comms frequency. Let them spread it. Lena's gaze ignited, improvising seamless. Code flooded, breaching drone mesh. Upload completed as the drone shot, but veered wild, virus muddling its fire. They escaped into belt shadows, drones scattering, bewildered by the data wildfire racing their relays. Elena breathed out, toll evident, hull gaseous to mend, reserves sapped. Yet the legacy propagated, Earth's offering expanding. Ship steadying, Jack spoke at last, voice firm. Too close. Next. Elena met their eyes, bonds stealing. We deliver. Colony by colony. Elena gripped her command chair armrest, the ship's engines humming faintly through the deck like a remote pulse. The view screen stuttered with static-veiled outer feeds, rendering void in sharp blues and blacks. Jack stooped at his console, fingers blurring over holographics, his smirk traded for taut focus. Closing fast, Captain. That council frigate has our vector, ETA 2 minutes unless we lose him. Dr. Lyra stood behind, tablet gripped like armor, scanning data. Pushing engines risks warp coil cascade. We've dropped 30% efficiency from the ion storm. Her tone held, but Elena noted the hand shake, cautious to the core, balancing every factor. Elena nodded, sifting exhausted options from the past hour. The council's slap, pledge fealty or blockade. Earth dispatched them unarmed, bearing human legacy proof, resilience artifacts, colony data from scratch. But the frigate's vexery captain, scales like burnished stone, read evasion as revolt. No declarations, no demands, only chase. Divert from life support, Elena said briskly. All to maneuvering thrusters. A desperate bet, courting chill if it failed, but yielding wasn't protocol. Jax looked up, mischief flickering. Mum. Let's dance these relics. The ship heaved as he shifted flows, consoles fading, auxiliary lights stretching shadows across bridge. Alarms trilled low, a warning choir Elena tuned out. Stars elongated outside, the frigate's form ballooning, a hunter's wedge slicing dark. Lyra murmured, weapons charging. If we, a shock hit, not thrust but comms flare. Vexery hail cut static, human vessel, enforcer prime Kale. Halter be crippled. Councils will absolute. Elena's jaw firmed. Absolute? Earth's tail shattered such bonds. Jax, asteroid slingshot. Debris field ahead, feign blind panic. He flashed a thin grin, charting swift. Ship veered hard, compensators moaning, rocks swelling as mute guardians. Lyra's tablet shrilled. Frigate matching. Faint failing, they're launching probes. Small dots broke from the foe, darting like irked wasps. Elena sensed the burden then, true price closing. One miscalculation and scrap, legacy a mere soul echo. Hold steady, she commanded, voice murring the surge. Jax's hands raced, threading the first asteroid's shade, gravity hauling them askew. A probe blew near, flash erupting screens, deck quaking with echoes. Fragments pattered hull, metallic hail triggering alerts. Down one probe, Jax said, sweat purling. More coming. Threading tight, any closer we burst. Elena paced to viewport, glass misting from breath. Asteroids rolled in languid disorder, an old cataclysm's tomb, and there, a slim fissure, shattered moon scrap, passable if perfect. Lyra trajectory calc Jax, a line. Not fleeing, drawing them. The doctor paused, then assented, caution bowing to figures. Viable. Collision risk 14%. Superior to doom. Ship dove, engines blazing blue amid rocks, frigate probes tightening. Into the gap they hurtled, hull creaking under tides, lights pulsing. A probe skimmed, ripping a sensor and spark burst, half blind now but breathing. Elena gasped, seeing the frigate balk, mass too vast for pursuit without ruin. Kale's voice grated, frustration edged. You invite ruin, humans? Council won't forgive this gall. Through they broke into open void, debris a wall astern. Jax exhaled soft whoop, slumping. Too close. Hull 87, we're venting Atmo and engineering. Lyra lowered her tablet, massaging temples. Warp coils overheating. Dock soon or strand. Elena reclaimed her seat, adrenaline fading to determination. Council craved loyalty, Earth delivered fiercer. A legacy hammered in such pivots, grit flipping hunt to flight. But the frigate arced broad, summoning aid. Chase endured, now it counted. Elena gripped the observation deck railing, knuckles blanching as stars blurred to streaks beyond viewport. The Legacy S engines thrummed ragged, testament to field patches failing. Marcus paced at her back, tablet flickering diagnostics, while Kira bent over a jury console, rerouting power, teeth clenched. Can't push her further, Kira said, voice strained. Core's destabilizing. One jump and we're debris. Marcus offered a wry grin, eyes strained. Debris with flare. But Elena, she's right. Council's blockade squeezes, those sensor phantoms we evaded? Scouts. No neutral lane breakthrough, we're finished. Elena turned, gaze level despite gut twist. The Council branded Earth reckless interlopers, unworthy of stars. Loyalty meant kneel or die. But Legacy embodied retort, hauling seed vault, archives, ironclad human endurance proof. Loss equaled total defeat. Options? She asked, tone measured. No frenzy. Not yet. Kira rose, brow sweat-streaked. Vent auxiliary tanks for thrust. Leaves us blind, no shields, weak sensors. Or hail nearest buoy, pose as merchant. Risky, might do patrols? Marcus scoffed. Pose? Our hull broadcasts, Terran light years out? Buoy's best, but it pings us. Their algos detect fakes faster than my quips. Elena balanced it, 2 billion homeworld lives bearing down. Earth's legacy shunned kneel, it roared from whispers via defiance. Buoy. Kira ready hail. Marcus, spoof signature, Lyran freighter battered. They flowed seamless, Kira's fingers swift, Marcus coding murmurs. Ship groaned, aligning to buoy's wink, a dim void lure. Elena watched the link spark, breath caught. Comms crackled, static. Unidentified, origin and cargo. Kira mic leaned, voice weary feigned. Asterisk stellar hull, asterisk Lyran registry. Limping from Epsilon, synth fabrics or samples. Lane clearance request. Pause dragged eternal. Elena's abort finger hovered. Response, verified. Proceed, inspection at marker 3. Relief surged, keen and fleeting. In, she said, shouldering Kira. But Marcus scowled at data. Wait, no clearance. Trap ping. Interceptors vectoring. Buoy spoof bounced to their web. Alarms erupted, Red's throbbing deck. Ship bucked, screens swarming, phantom hits. 3 council cutters inbound, arms live. Kira slammed overrides. Engines max. Course spiking. Elena strapped, deck thrumming boots. Plot had spectacularly reversed, dodged to target. Stars warped as Legacy lunged, cutters gaining, beams carving night like hunter stairs. Steady her, Elena urged, mind whirlwind. Not clear yet, toll rising. Seconds guzzled irreplaceable fuel, dodges hull stressed. Earth's Legacy sought more than life, ingenuity in blaze. Marcus tapped auxiliaries, calm in storm. Plasma vents reroute, burst possible. Fries we drift. Do it, Elena snapped. Kira nodded, caution bending to urgency. Ship convulsed, stern flaring brilliant. Distance gained, cutters swerving, plasma wake. One beam clipped flank, sensor array shearing in sparks. Fresh alarms howled. Minimal damage, Kira said, hands shaky on controls. Venting Atmo. Seal. Elena aided, valve twisting as air escaped. Ozone bit sharp, metallic. Past initial snare, neutral lane fringe glimmering on scan. Cutters dogged, Council's loyalty grip unyielding. As Legacy scraped toward haven, Elena caught Marcus's glance. Next, no hails. Improvise. He laughed, winded. Next. You captaining, always next. Lane parted, tenuous vow. But damage throbbed, a reminder scar. Earth's legacy wasn't soft winds. It hardened in such frantic bounds. Captain Alara Voss gripped the console edge, knuckles paling as alarms staccato blasted. Nebula tendrils raked hull, iridescent gases flashing brief against viewport. Status Reyes, she snapped, voice lasering the clamor. Ensign Reyes, ever cautious, mopped brow sweat and tapped furiously sly at his panel. Shields holding at 40%, ma'am. But the ion storm's frying our NAV systems. We can't plot a jump without risking a core breach. His fingers danced over the controls, rerouting power with the precision of a surgeon, but doubt flickered in his eyes, the kind that came from too many simulations gone wrong. Lieutenant Kale, the wiry alien engineer from the fringe worlds, leaned over from his station, his multifaceted eyes gleaming under the red emergency lights. Human ingenuity, they call it, he muttered, his voice a gravelly hum laced with wry amusement. But this nebula doesn't care for your legends. The Council's blockade is tightening, 3 cruisers closing from Vector 7. He jabbed a claw at the holographic display, where enemy signatures pulsed like predators in the mist. Alara's mind raced. The plan had been simple. Slip through the nebula's edge, deliver the encrypted data core to the resistance outpost on Epsilon Prime, and expose the Council's fabricated loyalty oaths. Earth's legacy wasn't blind obedience. It was the unyielding drive to question, to build, to endure. But simplicity had shattered when their initial evasion maneuver backfired, pulling them deeper into the storm's heart. Now the data core, holding blueprints for a shield-piercing weapon born of human scrap and sheer grit, sat vulnerable in the cargo bay, its hum a faint promise amid the chaos. Options. Alara demanded, straightening her uniform with a sharp tug. She wouldn't let panic seep in, her crew needed steel, not cracks. Reyes hesitated, his brave streak warring with caution. We could vent plasma to mask our signature by time for a manual jump. But it'd overload the engines, might leave us drifting. Kale snorted, a sound like grinding stones. Or we adapt. Use the nebulous currents against them. Rig the auxiliary thrusters to surf the ions, like your ancient sailors on waves. Risky but clever. Alara waited, the weight of Earth's defiance pressing on her shoulders. The Council had demanded loyalty through suppression, stripping colonies of their voices under threat of isolation. But humans? They turned isolation into invention. Do both, she decided. Reyes prepped the vents. Kale, get those thrusters singing. We ride this storm out, or we make it our ally. As they scrambled, the ship shuddered, a Council beam grazing the shields in a shower of sparks. Alara's pulse thrummed, but she allowed a grim smile. Legacy wasn't handed down, it was forged in the fire of impossible odds. The modifications took precious minutes, the crew's banter clipped and urgent. Watch the flux capacitor, don't let it spike, Kale growled at Reyes, who shot back. It's not a capacitor, it's a regulator, you oversized lizard. But their hands moved in sync, human precision meeting alien intuition. When the vents opened, a plume of superheated plasma erupted, blooming into a false signature that drew 2 cruisers off course. The third loomed closer, its weapons charging with ominous whine. Alara strapped into the pilot's chair, her hands steady on the yoke. Now, Kale? The thrusters fired in erratic bursts, catching an ion wave that slung the ship sideways. Alarms wailed as the hull groaned, but they broke free of the densest gas, the nebula parting like a reluctant curtain. The pursuing cruiser fired wildly, shots dissipating in the haze. We're clear, for now, Reyes reported, slumping back, his face pale but triumphant. Yet the scanners pinged a new warning. The data core's casing had cracked in the strain, its integrity at 80%. One more hit, and Earth's secrets would scatter like stardust. Alara nodded, the cost settling in her gut. Push to Epsilon. We've bought our window, don't waste it. The stars ahead sharpened, a beacon of what they fought for, even as the Council's shadow lingered, demanding more than they could ever give. Elena gripped the railing of the observation deck, her knuckles whitening against the cold alloy. The stars blurred into streaks as the Legacy pushed through the nebula's edge, its engines humming a low protest. Jax was below, coaxing more speed from the overtaxed core, but she could feel the ship's strain in her bones, like a marathon runner hitting the wall. HFY paced behind her, his iridescent scales flickering with unease under the dim lights. "This Dieter will doom us," he hissed, his voice a sibilant rasp. "The Council's fleet is closing. Your ingenuity won't outrun plasma cannons." She didn't turn, eyes fixed on the swirling gas clouds ahead, a graveyard of shattered asteroids from some ancient cataclysm. "Dieters are how we survive, HFY. Straight lines are for cowards." Her words carried the bite of exhaustion, but there was steel beneath. The plan had been simple. Slip through the nebula to the forgotten relay station, hack its ancient archives for the coordinates to the Veil, a mythical human outpost said to hold tech that could rewrite the Council's stranglehold. But the nebula's interference had fried their NAV systems 2 hours back, leaving them blind and groping. A jolt rocked the deck and alarms blared. Elena spun, boots thudding against the grate. HFY stumbled, claws scraping for purchase. "Jax!" she shouted into the comm, his voice crackled back, laced with grit. "Shields at 30%. Something stirring the dust, magnetic storms maybe. Or worse." He paused, the sound of tools clanging faint. "I can reroute power, but it'll black out the weapons. Your call, Cap." She waited, heart pounding in sync with the ship's groans. The Council demanded loyalty, stripping worlds bare for their endless wars, but Earth had whispered of legacies, tools forged in secret, meant to endure. If they reached the station, they could broadcast the Veil's secrets, ignite a spark across the fringe colonies. But failure here meant vaporization, no legacy at all. HFY's eyes narrowed, his tail lashing. "Weapons. Prioritize survival over your fairy tales." He stepped closer, looming with that alien height, but Elena met his gaze, unflinching. "Fairy tales got us this far." She keyed the comm, rerouted Jax. "Get us through." The lights dimmed, plunging the deck into twilight, stars winking out like dying embers. Another shudder, fiercer, and debris pinged off the hull, a hail of razor-sharp fragments. Elena braced as the ship lurched, the nebula's heart swallowing them whole. Visibility dropped to 0, sensors painting ghostly outlines of tumbling rocks. HFY muttered a curse in his tongue, gripping the console. "Insane. All of you humans chasing ghosts." "Not ghosts," she said, voice steady despite the chaos. "Proof." A console flickered back to life, Jax's handiwork, revealing a faint signal pulsing ahead. The station battered but alive, its silhouette emerging like a drowned relic from the murk. But as they closed in, a new blip appeared on the edge of the scan. A Council scout drone, sleek and predatory, slicing through the clouds. It had found them. Elena's mind raced, dock and hack or evade. The drone's weapons would charge in seconds. Jax, evasive pattern Delta. "Buy us time." "Aye," he grunted, and the legacy twisted, engines roaring defiance. The drone fired a warning shot, energy lancing past, close enough to singe the hull. Heat bloomed in Elena's chest, not fear but the fire of the fight. HFY watched her, scales paling slightly, doubt cracking his certainty. They skimmed the station's flank, grapples firing with a metallic whine. The drone circled, locking on. Elena slammed the airlock sequence, pulling HFY toward the breach. "Move. We get the data, or this was all for nothing." He hesitated, then nodded, a flicker of respect in his alien eyes. The airlock hissed open to vacuum's edge, the station's corridors yawning dark and derelict. Behind them, the drone's beam struck true, buckling the legacy his wing. Jax's shout echoed over comms, "Holding!" But not for long. Elena plunged into the shadows, HFY at her heels, the weight of legacy pressing like the nebula's crush. One console, one download, that's all they needed. But the station groaned, ancient mechanisms awakening, and something stirred in the vents, automated defenses triggered by their intrusion. The hunt had flipped, and now the real storm began. The dim glow of the auxiliary lights flickered across the command deck, casting long shadows that danced like uneasy allies. Captain Alara Voss gripped the edge of her console, her knuckles white against the worn synth leather. The ship's hull groaned under the strain of the ion storm, a relentless barrage that clawed at their shields like invisible talons. Beside her, Engineer Tomas Hale muttered curses under his breath, his fingers flying over the holographic repair grid. "Shields at 20%, he said, voice steady but edged with the grit of too many close calls. "If we don't reroute power from the engines soon, we'll be space debris." Across the deck, Lieutenant Kira Wren watched the storm's swirling chaos on the main viewport, her sharp eyes narrowing. She was the cautious one, always calculating odds, but now her usual reserve cracked. "The Council's fleet is closing in from the rear. They're using the storm for cover, smart bastards." Her words hung in the air, a reminder that this wasn't just nature's fury, it was a trap woven by those who'd branded Earth a rogue outpost. Elara nodded, her mind racing through the fragments of their plan. The legacy drive, the experimental core they'd smuggled from Sol, hummed faintly in the engineering bay, a beacon of human stubbornness. It wasn't a weapon, not exactly, but it could rewrite the rules of faster-than-light travel, turning the Council's monopoly into dust. They'd come this far defying orders, forging alliances with fringe colonies, but the storm had scattered their escorts like leaves in a gale. "Options?" Elara asked, turning to Tomas. He wiped sweat from his brow, the scar across his cheek pulling tight. "We vent the plasma coils to boost shields, but it'll cripple our maneuverability. Or we dive deeper into the storm, pray the legacy drive stabilizes us." Kira shook her head. "Dive means gambling with the core. One surge and it overloads, poof, no legacy, no proof for the outer worlds." She paced, boots thudding softly on the grated floor. The air smelled of ozone and recycled fear. Elara's jaw set. She'd led scavenging runs on asteroid belts, faced pirate swarms with nothing but a jury-rigged railgun. Grit wasn't a choice, it was etched into her bones. "We dive." Tomas, prep the drive for emergency sync. Kira, signal any nearby signals, tell them we're buying time for the handoff. Tomas hesitated, his witty retorts silenced by the stakes. "Captain, that's suicide. The storm's tearing apart anything without phase shielding. Then we become the anything that survives." Elara's voice cut through the hum of failing systems, brooking no argument. She activated the comms, her broadcast crackling into the void. "This is the legacy's dawn. To all free stations, Earth's not kneeling. Hold the line, we're delivering more than promises." The ship lurched as they plunged into the storm's heart, lightning arcs blooming like fractured stars against the hull. Alarms wailed, red lights pulsing in rhythm with Elara's heartbeat. Tomas wrestled the controls, syncing the drive's quantum weave to the shields, a hack born of late-night simulations back on the moon docks. It held barely, the ship shuddering as if alive and protesting. Kira monitored the rear sensors, her face illuminated by the flickering displays. Council interceptors breaking through, 3 minutes out. A beat. Make that 2. In the engineering bay below, the legacy drive whirred to life, its coils glowing with an otherworldly blue. Elara felt it through the deck plates, a vibration that resonated in her chest. This was their edge, not brute force but the ingenuity of a species that built starships from scrap and dreams. The first hit came without warning, a probing shot from the lead interceptor, glancing off the reinforced bow. Sparks erupted from a panel, and Tomas slammed it shut with his palm. "We're blind on starboard. Rerouting visuals." "Got it?" Elara interrupted, twisting the ship into a barrel roll that pressed them into their seats. The storm's winds howled in sympathy or mockery. She glimpsed the interceptors through the chaos. Sleek, council-issue predators, their hulls etched with the sigil of enforced unity. Kira fired the countermeasures, chaff blooming like metallic snow. One down, clipped its wing. But they're adapting. Elara's mind flashed to the handoff coordinates, a derelict station orbiting a gas giant. If they made it, the legacy schematics would spread like wildfire through the net, arming every dissident fleet with jump tech that bypassed council tolls. But the cost, she pushed the thought aside. Lingering meant defeat. Another jolt rocked them, systems flickering. Tomas yelled over the din, "Drives at max. It's pulling us through, but the storm's feedback is frying the relays." "Hold her steady," Elara commanded, her voice an anchor in the tumult. She coaxed more power from the core, feeling the ship's pulse sync with her own resolve. The viewport cleared for a heartbeat, revealing the station's silhouette amid the swirling clouds. A rusted haven, lights winking like a promise. The lead interceptor closed, weapons hot. Kira's fingers danced on the turret controls. Firing all, the shot connected, a bloom of fire that lit the storm like dawn. But it wasn't enough. Alarms screamed as the Council's beam lanced through, shearing off a solar array. The ship spun, lights dimming to emergency red. Ilara fought the controls, sweat stinging her eyes. Tomas, emergency burn, now? He triggered it, the engines roaring defiance. They hurtled toward the station, the storm parting just enough. Docking clamps engaged with a metallic Captain Ilara Voss gripped the armrest of her command chair, the hum of the Legacy's engines vibrating through the deck like a distant heartbeat. The bridge was a cocoon of flickering holograms and soft blue lighting, but tension hung thick in the air, sharper than the recycled oxygen. Her crew, 3 souls she'd trust with her life, moved with practiced urgency. Jax, the wiry engineer with a perpetual smirk, hunched over the console, fingers dancing across the interface. Beside him, Lena, the sharp-eyed navigator, plotted trajectories that twisted like vines in a storm. And in the shadows near the viewport, Dr. Harlan Reed watched the stars, his face etched with the quiet resolve of a man who'd seen too many worlds burn. The Council's fleet loomed on the main display, a swarm of angular ships blotting out the nebula's glow. They'd cornered the Legacy in the Vale sector, demanding surrender after the humans' audacious broadcast, a message of unity that had rippled across a dozen systems, exposing the Council's iron grip. Ilara's plan had been bold: seed the stars with data buoys carrying Earth's cultural legacy, stories of resilience that no algorithm could suppress. But now, with their shields flickering under sustained fire, that plan teetered on the edge of failure. "Shields at 40%, Jax called, his voice steady but laced with grit. He wiped sweat from his brow, the smirk gone. "They're targeting the buoy launchers. If we don't deploy the last cluster soon, it'll all be for nothing." Ilara nodded, her jaw set. She was the brave one, the captain who charged into the unknown, but caution whispered in her ear now. One wrong move, and the Legacy became space debris, their legacy nothing but echoes in the void. Lena, evasive pattern Delta 7. Buy us time. The ship lurched as thrusters fired, weaving through a hail of plasma bolts. Alarms blared, red lights pulsing like wounds. Lena's hands flew over her controls, her cautious nature shining through in the precise arcs she charted, avoiding the debris field from their earlier skirmish, where a Council frigate had met its end thanks to Jax's improvised minefield. Pattern engaged. But they're adapting, Captain. We can't outrun them forever. Harlan stepped forward, his witty edge dulled by exhaustion. Adapting? That's their weakness. They've got numbers, but we're the ones who improvise. He tapped the secondary console, pulling up schematics of the nebula's core, a turbulent gas cloud laced with exotic particles. If we dive into that, their sensors go blind. But it'll fry our systems if we're not careful. Ilara waited, the risk coiling in her gut. The external challenge had escalated from a resource shortage, fuel cells drained by constant evasion, to this: a rival fleet closing in with the stakes personal now. Lose the ship, and Earth's voice in the galaxy silences. Worse, the crew pays with their lives. Her mind flashed to the families back on the colony outposts, counting on this transmission to inspire rebellion. Helm, set course for the nebula. Jax, reroute power to the launchers. Harlan, you're with me. We're manually overriding the final buoy sequence. She stood, the decision anchoring her like gravity. No speeches, just action. The crew moved as one, camaraderie forged in the fire of shared peril. As the Legacy plunged into the swirling clouds, visibility dropped to 0, the view screen filling with ethereal greens and purples that danced like phantoms. Sensors screamed interference, but Ilara felt the ship's pulse quicken under her hands. In the launch bay, she and Harlan wrestled with jammed hatches, sparks flying from overloaded panels. "Come on, you stubborn beast," she muttered, prying at a conduit. Harlan's clever twist of a tool dislodged the blockage, and the buoy ejected into the nebula's heart, a silver seed carrying symphonies, histories, the unyielding human spirit. But the cost hit hard. A shudder rocked the ship. A council probe had slipped through, grazing the hull. Alarms wailed, hull breach in engineering. Jax's voice crackled over comms. Captain, we've got a fire in the core. Losing pressure. Elara sealed the bay and sprinted back to the bridge, Harlan at her heels. The nebula spat them out the other side, buoys dispersing like dandelion seeds on cosmic winds. The Council's fleet hesitated, their formations breaking as the transmission flooded their networks. Legacy delivered, not loyalty. Yet as they limped away, engines coughing, Elara saw the lingering scar, a damaged warp coil stranding them for weeks in uncharted space. Jax patched what he could, his hands bloodied from the blaze. Lena recalibrated NAV with weary precision. Harlan stared at the fading nebula, a faint smile breaking through. We did it. But next time, let's not cut it so close. Elara allowed herself a breath, the adventure's tension easing into quiet triumph. Earth's legacy spread, a ripple that would challenge the stars. But the price, their battered ship, the ache of survival, reminded them. Ingenuity won battles, but grit carried the war. Elena gripped the console's edge, her knuckles whitening as the ship's alarms blared in staccato bursts. The view screen flickered with the debris field ahead, a graveyard of shattered hulls from the Council's failed enforcers, now twisted into a lethal maze by the nebula's electromagnetic storms. Marco's voice cut through the din from engineering, strained but steady. Shields at 30%. One more pulse like that and we're venting atmosphere. She didn't look back, eyes locked on the sensor readouts. Zorak, the avian diplomat who'd thrown in with them after the Council's betrayal, shifted uneasily in his perch by the NAV station. His feathers ruffled, a sign of agitation she knew all too well now. Human, this path is folly. The rift generators they demand, we cannot deliver them through this without the core overloading. The plan had seemed solid back on the outpost. Slip through the nebula's edge, rendezvous with the hidden relay, and transmit the modified schematics that would turn the Council's weapon into a shield network for the outer colonies. Earth's legacy wasn't submission, it was adaptation, turning their demands against them. But the rival faction, those shadowy Krell operatives, had anticipated the rout. Minds dotted the field now, pulsing with stolen human tech, ironic traps laced with their own ingenuity. Elena punched in a course adjustment, the ship groaning as thrusters fired. A mine detonated nearby, the shockwave rattling the deck plates. Sparks flew from a panel, and Marco swore over the comm, lost auxiliary power. We're blind on the port side. Keep it together, she replied, voice leveled despite the sweat beading on her brow. Wit had gotten them this far, her quips defusing Zorak's doubts, Marco's dry humor patching over failures, but now it felt thin. The stakes clawed at her. Fail here, and the Council's enforcers would glass the colonies, erasing humanity's first real shot at the stars. No grand speeches, just the cold math of survival. Zorak's talons clicked against the floor as he leaned in, scanning the flickering display. There, a gap, narrow but viable. If we vent plasma from the rear vents, it might mask our signature. Elena hesitated, glancing at the alien. Trust had been earned in blood, not words. Zorak's defection during the ambush on Vega Prime, shielding Marco from a disruptor blast. But this? Venting plasma meant exposing the engines, risking meltdown. Your call, Feathers. Marco, you hearing this? A pause, then Marco's voice laced with that cautious edge. Risky as hell, but better than drifting into those mines. I'll reroute the flows, give me 2 minutes. The ship lurched as another storm pulse hit, consoles dimming to red emergency lights. Elena's mind raced through contingencies, the weight of the crew, 50 souls, plus the legacy they carried, pressing down. No room for error. She engaged the maneuver, the vessel pitching into the gap. Mines loomed like silent sentinels, their fields humming faintly. Zorak's eyes narrowed, spotting the anomaly first. Ambush. Krell's signatures, 2 interceptors cloaked until now. Adrenaline surged. Elena's fingers flew across the controls, evasive rolls buying seconds. Marco's status. Plasma vamprimed. Firing now, hold on. A brilliant azure plume erupted from the aft, blooming like a false nebula. The interceptors decloaked, weapons hot, but their sensors faltered in the interference. One fired wildly, grazing the shields, the other veered into a mine's embrace. The explosion lit the void, a fleeting sun. They cleared the gap, the relay beacon winking into view. But as the ship stabilized, a new alert chimed, engine strain critical, a fracture in the core housing. Marco's report came grim, we made it, but the legacy drive's compromised. Transmission windows closing fast. Elena exhaled, the tension coiling tighter. Adaptation, always adaptation. Zorak, help me isolate the data packet. Marco, buy us time, manual override if you have to. In the dim glow, their shadows merged on the bulkhead, a testament to fragile alliances forged in fire. The Council would get their answer soon, not loyalty but something unbreakable. Captain Ilara Voss gripped the armrest of her command chair, the hum of the Odyssey's engines vibrating through her bones like a distant heartbeat. The view screen flickered with the debris field ahead, remnants of the Council's blockade ships twisted into jagged sculptures against the starfield. Her crew, Jax, the wiry engineer with his perpetual squint, Lena, the sharp-tongued navigator whose fingers danced over consoles like a pianist, and Marcus, the steadfast medic who patched more than wounds, stood ready behind her. They'd come this far on grit and scavenged parts, turning the Odyssey from a battered freighter into a wolf in sheep's clothing. Status on the cloak? Ilara asked, her voice steady despite the knot in her gut. Jax wiped sweat from his brow, his toolkit clanking at his hip. Holding cap. But it's jury-rigged from their own sensor tech. Won't fool 'em up close. We slip through the gap or we fight. Lena leaned forward, eyes narrowing at her holographic map. Gaps narrowing. Council's tightening the net. If we push, we hit their inner perimeter in 5. Marcus crossed his arms, his calm demeanor an anchor in the storm. And the payload? That legacy drive stable? Ilara nodded, glancing at the sealed crate in the cargo bay feed. Inside, not weapons or tribute, but Earth's gift. A crystalline archive of human history, ingenuity, art, everything that made them more than survivors. The Council demanded loyalty, blind obedience to their galactic order. Earth had refused, sending this instead, a legacy to inspire or infect depending on who looked. Alarms blared softly as a patrol drone swept past, its scan beam grazing the hull. The ship shuddered, lights dimming for a heartbeat. Too close, Jax muttered, rerouting power with frantic keystrokes. Ilara's mind raced through the plan they'd hashed out in the dim glow of emergency lights 2 cycles ago. The initial feint, broadcasting false surrender codes, had drawn the outer fleet into chaos, buying them this window. But now, with the core worlds in sight, failure meant not just capture but erasure. The Council wouldn't tolerate defiance. They'd glass colonies to make examples. Alter course 0.4, Ilara ordered. Thread the needle. Lena complied, the Odyssey banking sharply. Stars blurred on the screen as they wove between colossal wreckage, the ship's frame groaning under G-forces. A sudden jolt, another drone, this one locking on. Evade. Ilara barked. Jax slammed a panel, deploying decoy flares laced with human-coded viruses, digital ghosts to scramble alien systems. The drone veered, exploding in a silent bloom of fire. But the victory was Pyrrhic. Sensors lit up, reinforcements converging, their signatures like predators scenting blood. We're boxed, Lena said, her voice tight. Options. Ilara stood, pacing the bridge. Teamwork had gotten them here. Jax's hacks, Lena's paths, Marcus's steady hands during zero-G repairs. But adaptation was key now. Marcus prepped the legacy drive for broadcast. If we can't deliver it physically, we send it viral. He nodded, already moving to auxiliary controls. Risky. Their firewalls, ours are better, Jax grinned fiercely, cracking his knuckles. Human code's messy. That's our edge. As the first enemy ship loomed, weapons hot, Ilara hit the comms. This is the Odyssey representing Earth. We come not in submission but to share. The response was a barrage, plasma bolts searing space. The ship rocked, shields flaring red. Lena dodged, Jax stabilized, Marcus uploaded. The legacy drive pulsed, data streams leaping across frequencies, infiltrating the Council's network like roots through cracked soil. Enemy fire intensified, but hesitation crept in. On the view screen, alien vessels faltered, their formations breaking as the archive flooded their systems. Stories of human resilience, inventions born of desperation, bonds forged in fire. Not conquest, but a mirror. What if loyalty meant growth, not chains? One by one, ships powered down weapons. A hail came through, the Council's emissary's voice laced with uncertainty. What is this, intrusion? Alara leaned into the mic. Legacy. Not yours to control. The blockade parted, not in defeat, but in wary awe. The Odyssey slipped through, battered but unbroken, trailing sparks from hull breaches. In the aftermath, as they limped toward neutral space, Jack slumped against a bulkhead, chuckling. Think they got the message? Lena smirked, plotting a course home. If not, we earned a hell of a tale. Marcus checked readouts, the drive's light fading. Consequences were marked now. But Earth's voice echoes. Alara watched the stars, the weight of survival lifting slightly. They'd delivered more than data, a spark that might ignite alliances or wars. Legacy wasn't given lightly, it demanded everything. And they'd paid in full.